Okay, guys, we're back. So my apologies. There was something that I did have to go back and change with respect to the hilt right here, and I'll explain why that is right now. So with the ambient occlusion, what it does is it casts shadows, and it gives us a base for context shadows. So with this being mirrored, that was going to cause a problem because I was going to have a shadow right here, but now I was also going to have a shadow on this part. Same thing with here, be a shadow there, and then there'd be a shadow there, but nothing to cast that shadow. So I had to go back and lay out the UVs so these weren't mirrored anymore. So that's what's going on there. But yeah, so that's been changed. So just be aware of that when you're doing your stuff. But yeah, so we don't need this guy anymore. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna open up my snap. Here we go. And this has my UV snapshot on it. So if I come in here on the new layer I just made, and then get the paint bucket, hit that over there, and drag this layer down, you can see those are my UVs there. So now what I'm going to do, so let's name this stuff. I'm just leave that white for now. Okay. And now what I want to do is I want to open up my ambient occlusion. So if you had your project set and you did your ambient occlusion bake, you'll see this folder appear called render data. Go in there, go into mental ray, and you want to go into light maps. So there it is right there. So I'm going to open that up. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to select all, or Control A, copy, Control C, come back over here, and Control V. And that fits into my UVs all over here that you can see. So now what I'm going to do with this guy, I'm going to rename it ambient occlusion, or AO, and I'm going to take it, I'm going to change it to multiply. So what that's going to do is if I put a color, make a new layer here, and change my color, say to that, and I paint on this layer here, it'll show up. But any part that's dark and got the shadow on it, that'll still show as being dark. So that's what we're going to do with that. And you guys might notice that the aspect ratio has changed. The quality of the screen's probably gone down too. I'm on my Cintiq right now. Just to show you how we do this stuff. So let me go to this guy, and I'm going to open up the concept piece. I'm just going to put it on my other screen over here, just so I have an idea of what I'm going for. Okay. So I'm going to start with the hilt. Just start doing the red, and then we'll get the scuffing effect on there in a little bit here. So, and I know this is my hilt, so I'm going to hit that real quick, and I'm just going to hit it all the way with the red. Okay. So I got that, and I'm just gonna do this as red for right now. And let's do another layer. And let's call this, I don't know, metal. And I'm gonna find a metal color that I like. So, usually when I do metal, I like to give it like a little bit of a blue hue to it. So, let's see, right about there for now. And I'm just gonna do everything else as this metal right now, and I'm gonna go back and look at my 3D model and see which my little teeth have to be red. But for right now, we can just hit all this with metal. And this is going to be for my handle here. So, and I'm not going to do, you don't ever do a solid black. It takes away from it. So, and again, I have a little bit of blue hue on this. Alright. So I'm going to come back over to this guy. And I'm going to see which of these 4 teeth right here, they need to have a red on them. So I'm just going to go into face mode, select the faces, and I'm going to look at my UV editor, see which ones need to be red. So all those guys right there need to be red. So now I can go back into Photoshop. Sorry. Some difficulties here. There we go. And then I'm just going to take this ambient occlusion layer off, and I'm going to select the red. Holding down Alt with your brush tool selected allows you to get the color picker. All right. And I'll turn the AO back on. So I'm going to hit this guy with red. I'm going to hit this guy. This one. And this guy over here. So, and I know with the metal, I wanted it to have that edge. I want it to be a little bit lighter, so I'm just going to take it up to about there. I'm going to change my brush size using the bracket keys. I'm just going to hit it up with that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit too, make sure I'm getting close to the edge, but not over it. That's okay if you go over it a little bit, it's not going to make a huge deal. But if you get anal about it, you can always come back and paint it back over. Right here. That's a little much up there. Same thing with over here. Turn my AO off right now, make it easier. Do my color select. And if it's going off there, we don't care, because it's going to be blackened out. There's no UVs there. There's no polygons picking up on that. So that doesn't really matter to us right now. Okay. Now it's about time where you can get to the actual fun part of texturing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this up real quick, make sure everything's matching up. I'm just going to leave it as a Photoshop document, so T weapon underscore. So for diffuse, let's save it up. Oops. I was trying to save as a PDF. There we go. Okay. And I'll pop back over here. And then let's open up our Hypershade. And just use this Lambert. Usually you don't want to use your default Lambert, but that's okay right now. So I'm going to hit that, go over to my file, select browse, and it's going to automatically open up my project. There it is. Open it. And then if I hit 6, boom, showing up with our little UVs thing on it. That's okay. We'll get rid of that. All right, so let's get started with the fun part next. Okay, so let's go back into Photoshop. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to want to do is get this red triangles right there onto the actual blade. So the way I'm going to go about doing that is I'm going to get the lasso tool, and I'm going to do polygonal because I can get nice little sharp edges with it. So let's do that. Up, right there. Mark. Let's try it again. You want to see that little circle come up. I don't like that. I want it to go down further. Say about right here. No, I want it down further than that. There we go. So just hold down Shift, and you can continue adding some more. I got one more. Cool. All right. And then we can just go to our paint bucket. Alt select on the red. And we can paint bucket those guys. Deselect. Alright, so what we're going to do now, and this is part of the reason we put the metal under the red, is what we're going to do is we're going to go and edit the mask on this layer. So if you go down to this bottom, the bottom, hitting this button on the bottom here, click that. This is our mask. So what we can do with this is we can essentially paint black and white on this, and it'll affect what happens on here. Black is off, white is on. And there's the varying degrees in between that. So if I flip my colors, go back to my brush, and I paint black right here, it takes that out. If I flip it and paint right back, white, it comes back on. So we're going to use this to actually make it look like there's some wear and tear on the red paint. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit F5, brings up your brush manager. And what we're going to do is we're going to find us a nice textured brush. So maybe, I don't know, this guy. He looks fun. Okay. So what we're going to do with it is we're actually going to go into shape dynamics. We're going to change the angle jitter. We're going to push that up so it gets a little bit more sketchy. Scatter, we're going to change that. We're going to kind of push that up a little bit so it comes apart. We can increase the count of that if we want it more solid. But I think right there is good. We can do a dual brush too. So if I wanted to have another brush with it, I can change the spacing on it. We'll get some actually really cool effects on that. There we go. And transfer. So if I wanted to have opacity on and off with my pen pressure, I can do it right there. I don't really want that. I just want it to be on and off. So I want my pen pressure to determine the size of it. So let's close that up and come in here, turn the brush up and see what we get. Let's turn this on black. There we go. Okay. And we're just going to do that. It makes it look worn, aged, like it's been loved. So I think I'm going to stop the video here. And then when we come back, I'll have this done up a little bit more. And then we'll actually start working on doing textures and doing some dirt passes on it. Alright, so we'll be right back. Alright, so we're back and we're gonna start doing some of the dirt stuff over here. So let's go to our red, let's make a new layer. I'll just call it dirt. Okay. So the dirt is it's a general term. It's just for like dings and textures and stuff like that. So let's do like some dings on this guy. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the color and get this a little bit darker. I'll come in. I'm going to right click and I'm going to change my brush. We'll make it softer, change the size a little bit. Cool. And then I'm going to change the opacity. Let's make it like 30. And look at my concept here. Change this back. Alright, so I'm just gonna start putting this in. Lower the opacity a little bit more on that. Okay. So actually I'm going to change this because, say dense, break it up some more because we'll actually do some actual dirt here in a little bit. And I'm going to make this my highlights. And I'm going to select this right here as my color. And your highlights usually want them to be sharper, so I'm just going to do a hard edge here for it. And you want to think about respect to the actual light source. So, and have this actually adjust my transfer rate depending on my pen pressure. I think I'll get a better result. Yeah, that's actually a lot better. Okay, so now we're gonna do the little rivets that connect these guys into the sword. So let's get into that. So I'll just make a layer. Let's do it. Actually, let's do it right there. Let's do it right above the red. Okay. And I'm going to select that color. I'll make my brush probably about, how big do I want it? Probably about that big. Alright, I'm going to want a hard brush. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. I'm going to use my mouse for this because it's going to give me that perfect circle I want. There. There. here. That one. This one, just actually, let's do this one first. Let's take this one a little bit bigger. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do some layer effects. Double click on our layer. Well, let's just go to Bevel and Emboss. We're going to have our light coming from that direction. Let's play around with some of the stuff, see what we like. That's pretty nice. And let's say it's a little bit bigger. There we go. And we can soften it a little bit. Change the size of it. And there we go. Got rid of it. Ooh. Get that rid of there. So, pretty easy. Next, we'll do some scratches. And I'm going to put that up the top here. And I'm going to do with this is I'm going to select the highlight color here. And I'm going to put another layer effect on this so I can get a drop shadow on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Inner Shadow. Click onto it. Why not multiply? That's fine. Put this about 40%. And we want the distance at about 7. And we want our choke at 4. Leave that around 1 to 0. Let's leave it at 1 for right now. See what happens with that. Now let's change this guy to the little sine curve. And about 100, and so it should be good. 90 is fine. Ooh, that's right. I don't want that. That's fine right there. Okay. Okay. So still want a hard brush, and then what I'm going to do is get out of that. And I can hit this with my pen and get some little scratches in there. It's going to give it some nice little textures. And we had that highlight there, which is nice. But I want this to probably be a little bit smaller. Alright, and I'm going to change its size to 0. Alright. And I want to make sure shape dynamics on so I can adjust the width of it with my pen pressure. Okay, so I'll just start scratching. and set the rest of these guys with it a little bit. Now hit this. Little rivets with it too. And just do a little bit on here. Okay, let's save that up.